US warships are deployed in the Venezuelan Caribbean, but not for what you imagine. There will be no landings or invasions. Washington has designed a cold and calculated strategy to sink Nicolás Maduro's regime without firing a shot. And every naval maneuver, every sanction, and every announced reward are part of this geopolitical chessboard that seeks to destabilize Chavismo from within. Officially, we speak of anti-drug operations, but why 8 ships, a nuclear submarine, and F-35 aircraft in Puerto Rico? The answer lies in money. The destroyers patrol maritime corridors that were once highways for Venezuelan cocaine. Each seizure means millions less to maintain the loyalty of military personnel and officials. Without that income, the Cartel of the Suns loses strength, and with it, the stability of the regime. In short, every ship in the Caribbean not only monitors but also suffocates Maduro's finances. The impact is visible. Maduro reacted by deploying militias on 284 fronts within the country, a move that doesn't reflect power but fear. Because when a regime mobilizes armed civilians to feign strength, what it actually reveals is weakness. Paranoia is no longer a perception. It has spread to the chain of command. Generals are hesitant. Officers are wondering how long they can hold out under constant naval siege. And while maritime pressure cuts off money routes, another front strikes deeper, that of rewards. Washington doubled the amounts for key information, 50 million for Maduro, 25 million for Diosdado Cabello. And that money isn't just a number, it's a psychological weapon. Because since the new rewards were announced, defections of high-ranking officials have increased. Officers who until yesterday were loyal are now secretly negotiating with US intermediaries. Distrust increases. Which of my colleagues would be willing to sell me out? In short, Maduro doesn't need external enemies. His own allies are already betraying him. The consequences are clear: internal purges, sudden changes in leadership, and ever-shrinking circles of trust. A regime that constantly restructures itself to survive is a regime that is crumbling. And amidst this erosion, a figure emerges who plays her cards with calculated patience: María Corina Machado. Her strategy is the opposite of direct confrontation. She offers no excuses for repression, but she doesn't hold back either. She secretly tours the country, remains hidden and highly communicated while building technical teams and strengthening international contacts. And most importantly, she designs a transition plan with real support. The United States and its allies are already consulting with their advisors on humanitarian aid and economic recovery measures. Foreign governments are ready to recognize a new government and extend aid as soon as Chavismo falls. In short, the opposition is no longer waiting for collapse. It is preparing to administer the day after. Thus, the playing field is set up on 3 fronts: naval pressure that cuts off money, rewards that break internal cohesion, and an organized political alternative that offers a way out. The result is a dead end for Maduro and his other accomplices. He is left with only 3 options. 1. Intensify repression at the risk of a justifying international intervention. 2. Negotiate his departure, accepting the total loss of power in exchange for personal safety. 3. Resist until collapse, supported by inexperienced and increasingly distrustful militias. 3 different paths, 1 outcome: losing power. In short, the question is no longer whether Maduro will fall, but how and when. And international isolation reinforces that certainty. The European Parliament voted to include the Cartel of the Suns on the list of terrorist organizations, an unequivocal sign that Chavismo has run out of defenders on the global stage. At the same time, Diosdado Cabello distributes old weapons to improvised paramilitaries, a scene that looks more like the decline of a regime than a show of force. This is the innovative aspect of the US strategy. It doesn't depend on a costly invasion or a single front, but on the simultaneous combination of all of them. The sea, money, and politics are aligned like chess pieces in a slow-motion checkmate, and every decision Maduro makes brings him closer to the outcome. It can already be seen on his face. What's happening in Venezuela isn't just an internal conflict, it's a laboratory for contemporary warfare, coordinated psychological, economic, and military pressure to break a regime without having to occupy territories. A formula that could be replicated in other corners of the world where Washington seeks to protect its influence. The question is inevitable. What will Maduro do in the coming weeks? Will he take action? Will he remain in power until the end, or will he seek to negotiate a way out that guarantees his physical survival even if he loses the throne? And this is where your reflection comes in, because what happens in Caracas has repercussions in Bogota, Buenos Aires, Washington, and Madrid. It affects the entire region and shapes the future of millions of people inside and outside Venezuela. We are witnessing a decisive chapter in Latin American history. In short, Chavismo faces the most silent and effective checkmate in its history. What do you think? Are we seeing the beginning of the end of the regime or a new episode of resistance? Maduro says he would turn to armed resistance like a revolutionary. Do you think it's possible? Leave it in the comments, subscribe to Leadership Latam, and join us in this analysis. Because what happens in Venezuela not only defines its destiny, it can redefine the rules of power throughout Latin America.